Welcome to Walking by Faith, a podcast from Torch Trust where we talk to blind and partially sighted people about how their lived experience of being visually impaired has impacted their faith and spiritual lives. I'm your host, Lynn Davis.
Hello, I'm Dave Ling, and I, for many years, was an editor and audio reader of books for Torch Trust. Before that, I was a school teacher. Now, of course, I'm retired and I live in a care home. And I've lived in this care home since 2020, and that was when I lost my sight.
How did you lose your sight?
Well, for most of my life, up until about the age of 59, 60, I had perfectly good sight, reading glasses, of course, latterly, but that was all right. And then in 2004, over the space of a week, I lost the sight of my right eye, but the left eye continued perfectly okay. And during that time, of course, I was working at Torch Trust for reading books and editing the audio. And in fact, it was that went on for some 15 years or so. And then suddenly, towards the autumn of 2020, the sight went in my left eye as well. So obviously, I had to then give up reading, doing the audio books. And in fact, it meant a complete change of life because after living on my own, suddenly to have no sight at all was quite a sort of shock to my way of life. And throughout that time, while I'd had the one eye, actually had great peace in the fact that although they'd said I might lose the other eye, I carried on perfectly normally, doing everything, driving around and so on. But I think I was conscious always at the back of my mind that there was a possibility that maybe it would go. But I made no plans for it. I just sort of carried on trusting in the Lord, and that was fine. So that when my sight eventually did go, it was after the first lockdown of COVID. I was also at peace throughout all that time. It was remarkable to me how at peace I was. I think the reason that I did feel so peaceful was because I knew from experiences in the past, things like I'd suffered from depression and other various things. The Lord had always seen me through them, and at the end of them, I'd become more trusting that in fact what was happening was part of His will for my life. And therefore, I wasn't particularly worried when my eyesight finally more or less went. I've got very, very little peripheral vision and no central vision and nothing below the halfway mark at all. And therefore, it's as good as saying that I can't really see anything very much. I had just been reading about Joseph recently, and I can remember after he went through all those problems in his early life, where he was kidnapped and trafficked and wrongly imprisoned, forgotten about, and so on. He kept his faith and he went on and rose to become the person who was distributing all the food in Egypt. And eventually, of course, he he met up with his brothers. And at the end of his life, he was able to look back and say, God meant it for good. And it was at that point, it was my ambition to be able to say the same thing, that God meant it for good, that I should lose my sight. And quite honestly, I'm finding that that is very much the case. A few months later, I was actually listening to the book of Job, and that was also a great help to me because I found that after he'd gone through he was going through all these troubles, and he was moaning, and his wife obviously got fed up with him and said, "Why don't you just curse God and die?" And Job said, basically, "Don't be daft. We don't just thank God for the good things he brings, we thank him for everything he brings, good and apparently bad." And at that point, I made the conscious decision, I am going to be thankful for my sight loss. And it's a remarkable thing. I was able to do that, be thankful for it, and it has really, I think, transformed my life. I mean, I was a Christian before, but not in quite the same way.
When and how did you become a Christian?
Well, I was brought up in a Christian family. Our family were very sort of nonconformist and quite strict Christians. And I think through my sort of later teenage years and sort of through the university and so on, while I didn't actually rebel, I suppose it was a bit like I was testing the boundaries, shall we say. And that went on in varying ways for several years. But as life experience carried on, I found to my surprise that, in fact, the boundaries weren't there, that in fact I could be a Christian, I could love the Lord, and still, you know, I didn't have to sit around reading the Bible on Sundays and things like that. It wasn't about following rules, it wasn't about anything like that, but it was just about loving Jesus and following him. And increasingly throughout my life, I found that he has, in that way, helped me through all the ups and downs. And there have been quite a few downs as well as ups in my life.
So how would you say your faith has impacted your unique lived experience of being visually impaired?
Oh, it has given me. Well, I spoke a little bit earlier about peace. I had this great peace when I first lost my sight, and I've had great peace about being visually impaired. In fact, it has meant that I can understand what it is, the kind of peace, more of the peace that the Lord brings, because I know that what I'm doing now is his will. I know because, in a sense, he has directed me to it. Of all the things that I've done in my life, there's always been indications that that was where the Lord wanted me to go. But this was a very, very clear and precise pathway that he set. It was obvious to me that what was happening was God's will, and that because I was thankful for that, then I was able to make it really part of my lived life. And so it has proved over the last few years, 4 years or so. I am absolutely convinced that what I'm doing for the Lord is right. And of course, as far as church life is concerned, it means that I've understood far more what it is like to be, for people to want to look after me. And it's created in me this great desire to do something important, to do something special for the Lord that he has commissioned me to do by giving me this blindness. And I'm very grateful for the fact that I have found, in many ways, the purpose of what I need to be doing to serve the Lord, and in particular in church, among the people who have disabilities, but also in the home, in spreading. Living in a care home, of course, there are people of all sorts in this place, and I can be a witness to people here in this home in a way that I hope is helpful to them, and I can sympathise I mean, people have got all sorts of disabilities in this place, different kinds. And in a sense, I'm one of the fortunate ones that I've got my physical health, I can move around, I've got my mental health, and I can organise little sort of services. We're just going to start up a little prayer group in the home.
So yeah, so you're already touching a little bit on it, and I think it's really interesting how that has come about. Because I'm also interested in how has being visually impaired impacted your experience of church?
Oh, very much so. We, of course, the services kind of stopped and during the lockdowns and so on, and then we went into a building program. So the church building itself wasn't being used, and we used the church hall and so on. And when we started coming back, it was all very different. And I found that probably because people were isolating from each other far more, that I was actually quite isolated in church. Now we've got a new building, we've got a new vicar, almost a new start, you would say. Uh, we've got great accessibility, but I'd say that what is lacking is inclusiveness. It's very easy to go in and out of the building, whatever disability you've got, but actually to be included in the services, there is a long way to go. Basically, because services have become very, very visual. They've got a huge, great screen at the front which totally dominates. And this has meant that things have changed. They, in the old days when we had hymn books and so on, they would announce the number of the hymn and read out the first line or two, and you'd know exactly what you were singing. These days they don't do that. There was one Sunday evening, and uh, it was an organ song, and it was a wonderful thing because the leader had said, you know, this hymn is about so and so and so and so, and the organ struck up with "Abide with Me." So I thought, oh great, I can join in with this one from the start. So I was lustily singing away the first line, and when I was just about getting to the end of the first verse, I suddenly realised everybody else is singing different words. It's things like that which, I mean, it's so simple and so basic. It means that you're, in a sense, excluded from a lot of what's going on in the services. I've decided that what I'm doing basically now, I'm operating a policy in church of obvious presence so that people can see exactly what I'm doing and where I am. So I don't try to sing words that I don't know. I stand there with my mouth closed, humming maybe and tapping the seat in front of me, but that's it. At the end of a service, I would go up and down the aisles, poking at people with my stick, making them say hello to me. Of course, what people generally do is try to make way for you and get out of your way. And my response to that is, don't run away, say hello, tell me who you are, because a lot of people, you know, think that having things in your way is a problem, whereas having things in your way shows you where you are, basically, doesn't it? And actually, I also I've taken the tip from you, which I think you did on a podcast a couple of years ago, where you mentioned that you'd read the lesson. And I've started doing that a bit in church. And so, you know, I use the Pathway Bible, the David Suchet, and I just listen to it on the headphones, and I speak out the passage, and it seems, you know, it seems to work. It's it's things like that, making myself visible and showing people that I can do things. I'm not there to be served. I'm there to help to serve as well. And hopefully the message is getting through slowly but surely.
Who has supported you through your faith journey, perhaps especially after your sight loss?
There have been one or two really good friends, and I think that one of the advantages is that I moved to a care home that's only 500 yards from where I've been living, from the house I've been living in 45 years. So, I haven't gone away anywhere. I'm still around. But the my small group attached to church, we have quite a lot of small groups, and they're a wonderful bunch. We're supposed to sort of reshuffle a little bit every 3 years, but this group has been going only slightly changed for 10 or 12 years, and they have been absolutely wonderful. We meet every week, and we meet for a curry every Thursday night, and then a bit of Bible study, and that's really helpful. And they are used to, sort of when we're discussing, say, a verse, they're used to reading the verse out, so that I don't have to keep saying what verse are you talking about? What are you know? How can I answer the question if I don't know what the words are, kind of thing? And it's so much easier with a small group. I mean, I can quite understand that in a large church, it's going to be harder than in a small group of people, isn't it?
And how has your unique lived experience impacted how you see God and God's love?
Oh, God has undoubtedly been my total support, and I don't know how people can manage without him. As I look around, some of the wonderful people who help us here in this care home, and some of them have really got such terrible lives, and yet they're cheerful. And I don't know why, because they haven't got what I've got. They haven't got that love of God and love for His people. In fact, we just last Sunday we were thinking about Jesus's command to love one another. The new command I give you: love one another. And I'm hoping that we can, the little group of Christians here, if we show that love for each other, that then that can spill over to the other people in this home. And because, when you live in a home full of people who are in their 80s and 90s, I'm the baby of the group. I'm approaching 80, and I'm the youngest here and have been since the day I came in. And they're coming to the end of their earthly lives, a lot of these old folk. And the carers, I mean, they have to go through so much sometimes, and for so little reward, so little joy that they can get out of it. Um, how can they do? How do they do it without the love of God?
What does walking by faith mean to you?
I think, following on from what we were talking about, it does mean having that purpose in life, having that love for God, for His people, and the desire to sort of spread some of the joy that I've got. That is my purpose in life. When I came in to the care home, I think my first thing was obviously to live life as a Christian, but to spread as much joy and happiness and a little bit of bonhomie and a few laughs. And that, I think, has stood me in good stead. It gives us, it helps to create the kind of atmosphere that people enjoy. And that's one of the great joys, that I enjoy life. I'm having a great time. And I want to really show people that as a Christian, life is good. And whether or not I can see is only a minor detail. In fact, I think if you offered me my sight back tomorrow by some miracle, I'd have to really think carefully about whether or not I'd accept it. Because the first thing I'd have to say was, well, is it actually God's plan for me? This sight loss has been in God's plan for me since before I was born. So actually, recently somebody asked me, haven't you ever prayed to be healed, to get your sight back? And I said to this person, look, if somebody gives you a Christmas present, you don't, if you don't fancy it, you don't just sort of say, no, I'm not accepting it, take it away. No, you thank the person, and you're grateful for the gift. And the time will come when you can use it. And I've seen my sight loss as a gift from God, and it's something which I trust that I am using in the way He would want me to use. And I see different ways of doing it all the time.
And finally, do you have a wellness tip for our listeners? Maybe something that has helped you in your faith journey, something that might also be encouraging to them?
Yes, I think the thing that has helped me most was probably that little conversation that Job had with his wife, where he said, we don't just thank God for the good things, we thank Him for everything because He's given us everything. And I have proved that to be absolutely right. There are other passages in the Bible. One which comes to me of Jesus, where He came across these 10 lepers and He healed them. He said, "Go and show yourselves to the priest." And they went off to it, and one of them came back to thank Him. And Jesus said, "Well, what happened to all the others?" And that's true, isn't it? I mean, it would be so easy to wish for a cure, and then all that a cure would do would be to send you back to your old life. Whereas proper healing is to be thankful. It's a spiritual thing, and that leads you onto something far better, far greater than you had been before.
We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Walking by Faith. If you'd like to get in touch about anything you've heard on the podcast, or if you'd like to leave any comments or feedback, you may do so by phoning 01858 438 260 or by emailing info@torchtrust.org. We'll be back soon, but until then, from me, Lynn Davis, goodbye for now, and thanks for listening.